grade and has qualified to nationals every year since then, has been the best junior in the nation this year, and is definitely going to rip up the circuit next year. So yeah, Devesh.
Before we start the debate, we're just going to ask for a quick poll on whether or not you, at this current moment, thinks that the national popular system is better or the electoral college system is better. So like, raise your hand for which one you think is better. So raise your hand if you would pick the national popular vote over the electoral college. And then raise your hand if you would pick the electoral college. Okay, and then at the end of the debate, we're going to be asking if any of you have changed your minds, which is essentially the ultimate goal of debate.
So without any further ado, oh yeah, we have to wait for Steve. So MSJ debate as a whole does two different types of debate. The first debate that we do is public forum debate, where you have a partner. Mine is Stephen. And you have a partner. The topics change every month, and the majority of our team is a public forum team. And the other event that we do is Lincoln Douglas debate. So the other event we do is Lincoln Douglas debate. That's what Lavanya over here does, where it's one-on-one competition. The topic changes every 2 months, and the topics revolve more about like philosophy and questions about like morality. And she can go in more about this during the intermission when she brags about what she does. But yeah, so during the round, we're going to do just one public forum round, where each team is going to come up, give one speech, and after each set of speeches, there'll be a crossfire where they exchange questions amongst each other. And after each set of speeches, we will go over the arguments that were brought up in that round, brought up in those speeches, and then do like a quick straw poll and ask if anyone's changed their minds yet. So yeah, without any further ado, first instruction. So he is going to outline their case and their arguments for why the national popular vote system is good.
So I was told to give an introductory speech, but I didn't write one, so I'll try to keep things short. I wanted to dedicate this round to all the debate parents out there, whether you're here or not, for supporting us in one of the most demanding and resource-intensive activities that a high schooler can do. You know, for all the long nights, the long drives back and forth from the airport, and all the money spent on tournaments and hotel fees, thank you. We can't thank you enough from the bottom of our hearts. We really appreciate it. And Dad, I hope this covers me for Father's Day. So I also really want to acknowledge everyone on stage who made this possible. So Keshav, Neha, Lavanya, Devesh, thanks. Third, finally, I want to thank everyone who came just for the extra credit and they don't want to be here. I was in your position once and I totally understand where you're coming from. Unfortunately, this debate's going to be long and tedious and uninformative and boring, and the amount of lying that Stephen did to get those 20 teachers to give you extra credit was incredible, so I'm sorry in advance for disappointing you. And finally, actually, I think I counted like 7 people who voted for the Electoral College and like 500 million for the national popular vote, so we get to change 7 people's minds. They have 500. Thanks. Yeah. So with that in mind, let's get started. Stephen and I affirmed the topic, and for clarification, under the Electoral College's winner-take-all system, states allocate the same number of electoral votes to the leading frontrunner, regardless of the margin of victory. This means winning a state by 7 million votes is the equivalent of winning it by 7. As a result, Professor Karen Kaufman of the University of Maryland explains in 2007, political strategists calculate that there is little to no reason to campaign in states like Texas and California, where the outcome of the statewide vote is known months before election day. Historically, Harvard professor Justin Curtis in 2015 explains that for the last 20 years, 40 out of 50 American states have voted for the same party every presidential cycle. As a result, the 10 swing states that have a chance of flipping one way or the other dominate every election. In the 2016 election, 94% of campaign events and 99% of campaign funding ended up in 12 battleground states, with nearly 30 spectator states not receiving a single visit. Law professor David Stromberg warns in 2008 that because of the extremely unequal distribution of electoral power in the Electoral College, swing states have up to 20 times more influence than safe states. With that in mind, our first point of contention is electoral splits. Elections where one candidate wins the popular vote but loses the Electoral College are becoming more and more frequent. Alex Wald of NBC News explains in 2017 that liberal demographic changes make elections where one candidate wins the popular vote but fails to win the presidency the new normal. This is because liberals are rapidly becoming densely packed into deep, blue urban areas that don't gain them any additional electoral votes, meaning that Democrats will control the popular vote but lose the Electoral College. Unfortunately, political science professor Ian Bremmer explains in 2016 that split elections produce massive amounts of political polarization, reducing cooperation between the Republican and Democratic Party. It also undermines the mandate to govern and takes away political legitimacy necessary to mobilize support for policies and reforms that can improve the well-being of Americans all over the country. Our second point of contention is political pandering. Given how crucial swing states are to the election, candidates are highly incentivized to concentrate federal grants and special favors into a select few states. Professor Douglas Kreiner of Boston University explains in 2014, across a wide range of policy concerns, presidents routinely pursue policies that disproportionately benefit voters in swing states to build political favor at the expense of a fair and optimal distribution of national resources. For instance, Professor John Graham at Indiana University explains in 2015 that because of the decisive role of states along the Rust Belt in presidential elections, candidates have consistently adopted positions against environmental regulation, against climate change, and against free trade in order to appease voters that work in the manufacturing capital of America. Pandering often leads to unrepresentative policy. According to Gelman in 2016 of Fox News, swing states have drastically different ethnic compositions from the rest of the country in favor of white voters. After calculating for their overall impact on the campaign, he found that white Americans have 16% more political powers than African Americans and 57% more than other minorities like Native Americans and Asian Americans. Luckily, Hoffman in 1996 finds replacing the Electoral College would remove state lines and allow minorities to form a nationwide voting bloc that could actually change the outcome of a race. He concludes, electoral coalitions are necessary to launch a successful attack on racial hierarchy and white supremacy in the United States, and the only way that this can happen is with a national popular vote. Our third and final point of contention is electoral manipulation. Keelty of the Medium in 2016 indicates the Electoral College makes the overall size of the election smaller by allowing candidates to limit their resources and attention to exclusively battleground states. The problem is, the Electoral College makes it easier to tamper with election outcomes in more dishonest ways because every change has a magnified outcome. For example, using voter ID laws and felony disenfranchisement to prevent minorities from voting is much more feasible under an Electoral College system where every vote counts. Moreover, Politico in 2016 writes, the downsizing of the election has driven a paradigm shift in the way campaigns campaign. The game plan has changed from winning moderates and undecided voters to mobilizing the party's most loyal supporters, an outcome that is much more controllable within a smaller election. The problem is that focusing on turning out voters, that's very inappropriate, I'm sorry, rather than persuading them is bringing harm to the political system. Both parties have begun inundating voters with targeted advertisements, ignoring parts of the country they can't win, and pouring all of their resources into a single-digit number of states. Unfortunately, Michael Barber of the American Political Science Association explains, as candidates take more extremist positions to energize their supporters, gridlock between parties prevents any actual policy change and ensures that the most polarized policymakers are the ones driving the legislative change. For these three reasons, we urge you to affirm, give power back to the people, and reject the Electoral College. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Lavanya. I'm going to be negating, which means that I like the Electoral College. Before my speech, I'd like to thank Keisha and Neha for being awesome MCs, even though they did mess up the partnerships like 3 times.
times. Okay, starting my speech. Because the Electoral College protects a unified America, Devesh and I negate the resolution. Our first and only contention is the divided states of America. Political polarization is at its worst point in decades. According to the Pew Research Center, gridlock in our government has prevented true representation, breeding counterproductive policy, and degrading trust. The executive office is our only line of defense against small majorities that push unrepresentative laws through government. As Professor Sean Rosenthal explains, the Electoral College aims to produce a president that can moderate the extremist undertones in our government by building unified national coalitions. A popular vote would make this impossible in two ways. The first is fragmenting the race. According to the Washington Post, the winner-take-all system of the Electoral College rules out the possibility that fringe candidates can garner enough votes in any single state to make a dent in the race. Without the college, there would be no break on the number of viable candidates, resulting in fragmented races with dozens of third parties. This fragmentation would embolden extremists. As Stephen Ansela of the Journal of Public Choice explains, in order for fringe candidates to be successful, they have to differentiate themselves from other candidates who are politically moderate by adopting extremist positions. When most candidates split the vote because of their similarities, those on either far end of the political spectrum will emerge with a plurality. The best example of this is in Europe, where for decades, populists like Le Pen in France and others have thrived as a result of popular vote systems that disadvantage the most representative candidates. As the Taxpayer Freedom Association concludes, a president elected by only 20 to 35% of the vote would lack the legitimacy that comes with the Electoral College and would pose a serious threat to the nation in their inability to pass policies and their capacity to pass harmful ones. The second way a popular vote would increase extremism is by changing campaign strategy. As Eric Posner of UChicago explains in 2016, the Electoral College requires a candidate to have broad national appeal. No region has enough electoral votes to elect for president, so candidates decline to campaign heavily in states they'll win and refocus their efforts on pulling voters across the aisle in a select number of swing states like Ohio and Florida. This is important because as Scott McLean of The Hill writes, these states have higher voter turnout, near equal party identification, similar racial and economic composition to the nation as a whole, and a greater proportion of independents than the national average, putting them in a unique position to represent a wide array of national interests. That's why Tara Ross concludes in an analysis of nearly every major election in the past 3 decades that the Electoral College focuses candidates to build broad-based coalitions that represent the moderate middle rather than ideological extremes. A national popular vote would change this. As Stephen Colagero of the Mississippi Law Journal explains, if the margin in even the safest of states matters for the outcome of an election, candidates shift their strategy away from persuading swing voters to energizing their existing party bases in an effort to drive up turnout where they are concentrated. Rigdon of the DC Bar Association contextualizes that it's much more efficient for candidates to appeal to voters in their stronghold, where they already have efficient organization and wide recognition. Candidates, knowing that it's easier to bring a supporter to the polls than to convince someone on the other side, would blanket vote-rich, secure states like Texas and California, would get out the vote efforts and adopt more extreme platforms to increase their ideological appeal. For these two reasons, a national popular vote would incite a wave of politically extreme presidencies. This is critical. As Howard of Harvard University explains, the executive office has more than enough mechanisms at its disposal to suit the president's strategic interests, be it via executive order or otherwise. Even worse, presidential extremism spills over to the rest of the government and worsens existing polarization. Matthew Barber writes that when abused, the presidential veto inhibits majority rule by guaranteeing that moderate legislators have no chance of pushing policy, while extreme faction support is a necessity. Problematically, as The Atlantic concludes, moderates uniquely have the ability to see both sides of the issue and represent Americans on core issues like income inequality, race relations, criminal justice, and more, all without ignoring the interests of an entire half of the nation. The rise of extreme presidencies will lend itself to a new group of forgotten Americans every 4 years, and it's for this reason that Devesh and I are incredibly proud to negate. Thank you.
Is everyone here? Can everyone hear me?
Now we're going to have a cross-examination period in which we'll be able to ask each other questions. This period is going to last for 3 minutes, and I'm setting a timer for 3 minutes right now. Starting now.
Okay, Lavanya, can you give me an example of political polarization in America?
Sure, let's talk about climate change. It first became a huge issue in the 80s with Reagan, who was a Republican. However, if you look at the status quo, it's majority Republicans who oppose measures like more regulations by the EPA, or like COP21, or the Paris Accords. That's because of polarization. Parties need to differentiate themselves. If both Republicans and Democrats agree that global warming is real, then that's not going to become a core issue in the election. The only way for people to use climate change as a reason, and as a reason to bring voters out, and a reason to vote for a particular party, is to have a different approach, which is why the Republicans in the status quo are very anti-climate change, even though it was one of their own who introduced the issue to national politics.
Can I get a follow-up question?
Sure.
If you make the argument that the reason polarization exists is in order to differentiate parties from one another, then how does switching to a national popular vote make that worse?
Sure. So that argument's coming out of our case when we talk about extremism and we talk about many different candidates. When you have lots of fringe candidates, it becomes much harder to differentiate yourselves. Let's take the example of France, or let's take the example of any European election. European elections generally use the national popular vote. So you have a few extreme candidates like Marine Le Pen, I'm sure you've all heard of her. And you also have a bunch of... She did, but let's talk about her opponent, Emmanuel Macron, who's currently the president of France. He's also very extreme. He's not a moderate at all. That's because France has over 12 candidates in their national election. It's really, really hard to be a moderate in a pool of 12, because when you have 9 other moderates in that pool, how do you stand out? You stand out by being Marine Le Pen. You stand out by being Emmanuel
Right,
Macron.
but in France there were like 9 extremists and like 2 moderates. It seems like it's the other way around. It's easier to differentiate yourself when you push yourself to the extreme, like your evidence says. So if everyone's trying to be different and everyone tries to be extreme, then the smart thing to do would be to moderate your policies, which is why the system is fine and it would be fine in America. Do you have a question?
Actually, I'd like to ask you a follow-up question on that. If that's true, why did Marine Le Pen get to the second round and none of them were moderate leftists or any of the centrists?
Can you name a single moderate leftist in France?
Yeah, there was Sarkozy who was going to run, and a lot of people were considering re-election bids, were considering running, but they didn't because polls showed that they had no
But
chance.
did you name any though?
I did. I named Sarkozy, and there were a bunch of others.
Who's that?
Sarkozy had an important position in the government of France. I believe he was the economic minister of France for a particular period of time. He was center-left. He considered running, but then ended up losing.
Okay, yeah,
I've got a
sounds like
question
you're
for
probably
you
right.
now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I take French, I'm probably right. All right, I've got a question for you. So you talk about swing states a lot. What makes a state a swing state?
If there is a 5% margin of victory between one party or the other. So for example, California, Republicans generally lose by like a margin of like 30 to 70, right? In this swing state, like New Hampshire, it's probably like 53 to 47, or something like that.
Wait, where are you getting this number 5% from? Like, is there a reason why we should prefer that number?
Yeah, that's generally what all census metrics, political analysts, pundits use. If you have a different number, that's fine.
Okay, sure. Do you have a question for me?
Sure. So let's talk about polarization, which seems to be the thesis of your case, right? Would you not agree that America in the status quo is getting more and more polarized?
We say that polarization is high, but we think that but there are also 2 types of polarization, right? There's polarization among the average American, right? There's the average American who might be becoming more leftist or becoming more towards the right. But there's also how we combat that, right? Our argument is that a shift in the political system would damage. Sorry?
What's the other type?
Sure. So the other type of polarization is when you have a president that's like super polarized, or when you have members of Congress that are super polarized. Our argument is that the way to control for the fact that the public is polarized, and to control for the fact that they are electing congressional representatives that are polarized, is to have a president who's moderate, but to have a president who can use the presidential veto and can get things done without having to pander to the most extreme factions of Congress. That goes back to the extremism argument that we talked about earlier.
Do we have a moderate president right now?
No, but I also think that if we have the national popular vote, Hillary and Trump would both have run their campaigns very differently. So I don't think that example applies.
Why not?
Because,
Trump win?
yes, he won the Electoral College, and he won under a system that used the Electoral College. Having a system that that use the popular vote, their campaign strategies would have been totally different. Their strategists would have changed things in a way that makes it impossible for us to know what that alternate reality would have looked like.
Okay, but if he wins in both worlds, then how is it any better or worse?
Our argument is that even if Trump won in this one particular election, the overall trend is that we can have presidents that are less likely to be more extreme.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's cross-examination.
Okay, so after those first two constructive speeches and the crossfires, how many people have changed their minds about the topic so far? Who? Okay, cool. So, and specifically about the cross-sects, how many people in the audience thought that Max won the cross-sects? Okay, and how many people? Okay, and how many people thought Lavanya won?
Okay, so the next speeches are going to be by Devesh and Stephen, and they're going to be something called the rebuttal speeches. So they're going to come up here and essentially tell you why the other team's constructive points are not right. This is also when Stephen is the funniest, so please pay attention. You will be very happy.
Yeah, let's go, Stephen!
Hey everybody. So my name is Stephen. I'm a senior on campus right now, and I know all the speeches have been incredibly boring so far. I can tell because my mom's probably on WeChat right now, and half the people are talking, but it's all good. Hopefully this will be pretty fun. And before I'd like to begin, I have a special dedication to one individual who has made this event at times the worst experience of my life, but also at times the best. It's a roller coaster. And he and I have been rooming together at multiple tournaments. At times, I would be so furious at him that I would take an Izzy bottle and straight up throw it at his face, purposely aiming a little bit up so he doesn't get hurt too badly. But I would like to argue that I have been the victim of his abuse for the past 3 years. An example would be sophomore year, I was at Florida, 3 o'clock in the morning, I was getting some really nice dreams, and I wake up with pepperoni slices over my eyes, only to realize that I became a target for the leftover pizza that they had the evening before. Not to say that this relationship doesn't go the other way. Hopefully the statute of whatever it's called protects me from this. Yeah, statute of limitations, there we go. Mr. Kodnani, if you're out there, I promise your son has never been too badly abused. Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, I'll keep it really good. Okay, I'm gonna tell it really quickly. There has been a time where this man has gone on for quite a couple days without entering the bathroom. For showering purposes. And as a result, the only way to cope with that is I used to take my deodorant, and when this guy is sleeping, but on those magical times where he does enter for an hour long, I used to go on his computer and message everyone on his Facebook the most entertaining love story they've ever heard. Alright, that's been a while. I'm going to start my speech. So, in this speech, I'm going to be establishing a framework and a standard, and then I'll be going down their case. The great Reverend Martin Luther King once said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." For that reason, we're going to establish a framework that contradicts their entire case. we would like to argue that the process of voting and how the election works is more important than the results. There's 3 reasons why this is true. The first reason is because of constitutionality. Award-winning journalist Harper once said that in the status quo, swing states have 48 times more influence than every other state because candidates concentrate their resources and pool their time in these specific states. As a result, these candidates often feel that these voters are more important and other voters don't get any influence as well. That's why Yale professor Adam tells you that the Supreme Court requires the federal government to establish a system where every single person has an equal vote, every person has an equal influence. For that reason, if we're violating the very Constitution that was written, I would argue that a popular vote is absolutely necessary because that's the bedrock of American democracy. The second reason is because of American anger issues. When the system is unfair, people don't trust the system. As a result, Robertson, a Harvard professor, tells you in 2016 that people don't go to the polls. Second and more importantly, they're more likely to bounce to the ideological pulp spectrums. And for third, they're less likely to reach out to people who have contradicting opinions. For that reason, we increase polarization when we don't have a fair system. The third reason is because of racism. Gelman tells you in 2014 that the way that campaigns work is that whenever candidates go to swing states, they primarily have white policies. The reason why is because they feel that white Americans are more likely to turn out on the polls, but second and most importantly, these people are generally the ones who make the biggest voting population in the majority of swing states. For that reason, he tells you that white voter issues are 16 times more important than black voter issues and Latino voter issues. That's why Hoffman tells you in 2016 that under a national popular vote, the national popular vote empowers minorities by allowing them to form a national coalition, making their influence much more significant. Now, their first contention is talking about fringe candidates. I don't have that much evidence, but it's just plain silly for a couple of reasons. First, it's just logically dumb because they try to tell you that right now, Gary Johnson can somehow run for presidency and make a big influence. By the sounds of this room, you clearly don't know who Gary Johnson is. My point is that he will never jump from 3% into 14% and actually make an election difference. Second and most importantly, even if extreme candidates do enter the polls, I would argue that having these extreme positions is significantly better than what we have right now because it creates more discussion. When people discuss more issues, they're more likely to compromise and therefore decrease polarization on the long term. Third and most importantly, they try to make a comparison to Europe and how Europe has this very messed up system. But what they are their juniors. They haven't taken government because if they did, they would know that Europe is a multipolar party system. The United States has 2 parties. You're either a Democrat and a Republican, and the rest of America, you don't matter. That's a joke. But finally and most importantly, if fringe candidates do become popular, historically they do adopt more broader positions, as NYU University tells you in 2014. The reason why is because for fringe candidates to ever win, they have to take a more popular position, therefore shifting the dynamics of American policies. Now let's go to their second contention about moderation, which is even more dumb. There's a couple reasons. First and most importantly, they don't tell you how polarization is affecting us right now, because the simple fact is, as a poll conducted by CPR tells you in 2015, that polarization is at the all-time high, and therefore, even if we can somehow, they can't make the problem any worse, so there's no impact to this argument. I don't understand why they're running it. Second and most importantly, I would argue that the clear politics that we're having right now is a good representation of what their world is happening. For example, we have President Donald Trump, who, during the election primaries, he took the most extreme positions. Even when he got into the final positions, he was also incredibly extreme. He's still trying to build his wall, do all his jank stuff. But the point is that where politics right now is that the politics are shifting towards a more extreme positions as the way that media is painting things, and therefore we need to adopt a national popular vote to reverse the track. And even in spite of that, also realize that Congress right now is incredibly polarized, and this brings me to 2 terms. First, Stromberg tells you in 2016 that candidates are more likely to campaign in a national popular vote to moderates because moderates are the actual people who are going to help them cross the finish line in a national popular vote. Because right now, swing states are highly ideological, and therefore moderates in the rest of the country get the final voting power. But second and most importantly, Robertson tells you in 2016 that candidates are already appealing to their base in swing states because they feel that these candidates are more likely to vote, and therefore they focus on that voter turnout specifically. Their tagline of the contention is a divided states of America, but the reality is that their America is significantly more divided than ours. Thank you.
Hey guys, so before I start, I'm going to give a similar speech to what Stephen gave, responding to his case and also answering some of the stuff he said to ours. I want to thank a few more people who haven't been thanked yet. First off, all the members of the team who aren't either emceeing or on stage, including the sophomores, that's Ishan, Arna, Tarun, Maggie in the back. We have Ansh over here who shows up to like one meeting a year. And if I didn't say your name, we still love you. I just put Lucas. I see you. Okay, so all those people. Next, our incredible coaching staff. So in the audience, we have Miranda Lay in the back. Can you guys please give her a huge round of applause? So, Miranda coached me ever since like 8th grade, I think. Through middle school national. She was my coach freshman and sophomore year. She wasn't with the mission this year, but she still came and helped us through some of our most important tournaments. And it's just awesome always having her around. I also want to give a shout out to our head coach, Victor, who's not here. I don't know why. He's always kind of missing. And then we have some other assistant coaches as well. Jasmine, for example, she's awesome. Pratik, who won't be with us next year, but again, we love him. He's in our hearts. He blocked all of us on Facebook because we always try to video call him while he's in class at Berkeley. And he got in trouble, apparently. It was pretty funny. So thanks to all of you for that. I also, once again, want to thank the debaters, so that's Max and Lavanya, and specifically, thanks so much to Lavanya. She doesn't even do this event. This is public forum, it's a 2v2 event, very different from her event, Lincoln Douglas. I showed up at 5 o'clock and kind of taught her what this topic and debate was about in 1 hour, when the rest of us had more than a month to prepare for the TOC. So please give her a round of applause for being awesome. I think that's pretty much everyone, so where are you from, Jim? And with that being said, let's start now. So we took a poll at the beginning of this round, and it was 500 or something to 7 for people who support the popular vote. And the main reason people want a popular vote is because they're thinking of the last election. They think about Hillary and Trump, and the immediate thought is, Hillary won the popular vote, why doesn't she win the election? The important thing to recognize is that if you vote for the other team, you're voting for an entirely new system. If we were to adopt a popular vote, we would no longer be adjudicating our elections in the same way. And both campaigns would have run their campaigns significantly differently. Instead of focusing on the swing states and the Rust Belt that ultimately won Trump the election, candidates would focus on big cities and big states that have the most votes, but that are ideological bubbles. Just like Fremont, California, where we're surrounded by a 90% Asian school, everybody here is liberal except for those 2 people in the back, and so nobody considers the views of the other side. The reason we focus on swing states in the status quo is because they are just that. They swing from the left to the right. They are 50-50 Democrats and Republicans, and that's incredibly important because focusing on these states through the Electoral College produces a president who can represent the interests of both sides of the nation. They like to talk a lot about Trump, but the only reason Trump was elected was because this is the only election in decades where there have been 2 candidates who both had net negative favorability, meaning literally everybody hated them, so of course they weren't going to pull people across the aisle. But in the majority of elections, we have candidates who move to the middle, adopt to the entire country, and carry forth a national message from FDR to Obama, and it's that system that Lavanya and I will vehemently defend throughout this speech. With that in mind, let's move on to their first contention, which talks about electoral splits. The argument they're making under this contention is that there are going to be situations where candidates win the Electoral College but lose the popular vote. That's fine. Our argument is that though that is not ideal, it still represents the candidate who gets the majority of states on their side. America was never about one person, one vote. It was about one person, one voice. When all the country's interests are being represented by a select number of states, that is always a better outcome than having candidates only going for the deep south and the hard blue states. Trump may be bad, but you get a lot more extreme people when you vote for Max and Stephen. But the second big response to this argument is you look at countries like France and you see a much worse system. They say the reason France and other countries have extremism is because they're multipolar multipolar systems, and that somehow Lavanya and I haven't taken AP government. First of all, Lavanya took AP comparative government. She got a 5 by self-study. Second, and more importantly, I took macro and micro. We talk about government. But most importantly, right, the reason there's a multipolar system in these countries is because of a popular vote. Because a bunch of small candidates can split the vote and win the election that way instead of appealing to the majority of states, and that's something that we want to maintain in the negative world. With that in mind, let's talk about my opponent's second contention about political pandering. The argument they're making here is that if we're only focusing on the swing states get all the love, and we ignore the rest of the nation. There are a couple of problems with this. The first major problem with this is that look at the system right now. The reason candidates focus on the swing states, like I said, is that they're more represented. They have about the same demographics in terms of how many minorities are there, the same average income, whereas states like California, which have higher incomes, way more minorities, and most importantly, are super blue. They won't even consider ideas from the other side. That's why we have polarization right now. The president needs to appeal to these swing states to remain moderate and represent the entire country. But the second point they make under this is that the swing states have more white voters, and that's a really bad thing because it leads to racist people like Trump winning. The problem is, right, like I told you before, Trump is an anomaly. But Trump has also raised some important issues that the Democrats need to grapple with. When Trump talks about workers' rights and trade deals, and people like Hillary Clinton don't discuss those issues, that leads to a more polarized America. But when candidates move to the middle and both sides can talk about the same issues, we start to break into the bubble that we all live in and actually crack into issues that affect most Americans. That's why we should continue to focus on the swing states. Finally, their last argument talks about voter manipulation, and we have two main responses to this. The first is that voters are a lot more likely to be manipulated with a popular vote when candidates only go for the hard left and the hard right and don't focus in the middle. But the second and most important response is that if candidates have to go for the entire country, they're going to stop visiting states and focusing on the issues that affect individual voters and start only running ads in the rest of the country and hoping that people will just rely on the media and the biases that come out of that to vote. That's not the system that I want, and it's for that reason that Lavanya and I continue to negate. Thank you.
So in this speech, there will be a box examination between Devesh and I, and it's a back and forth questioning, so hopefully we go somewhere with this. Ready? Go ahead and take the first question, Devesh.
Power move. Okay, cool. So let's talk about your responses to our case. You made this argument saying that candidates would have to appeal to the moderates in the country, meaning the people who are kind of 50-50, in order to win the popular vote, right?
I did.
Why is it the case?
Okay, so there's two reasons for that, okay? So first of all, in swing states predominantly, people are extremely right or extremely left.
Stop right there. Swing states are swing states because they can swing back and forth, right?
No.
Wait. Swing states are not swing states because they swing back and forth?
The definition that Max and I give you is
like a swing is a swing because it's swings back.
Let me explain really quickly before you make really great jokes.
Okay.
But our argument is that specifically for these states, they certainly do swing left and right, and that's why they're called a swing state.
Yeah.
But our argument is that the people there are not moderates.
Okay, so here's, I get that, but I want to cut you off because you're about to say something that makes no sense, right? So like, if the people are super extreme, right? Like 50% are die-hard Democrats and 50% are like die-hard Trump supporters, those states would never swing back and forth, right? Because, okay, anyways, even if that's the case, right? Beautiful. There are always going to be some people in those swing states, the people like right in the middle, who actually like swing it back and forth, who are going to be moderate.
How about I make my explanation, because you did ask the question.
Go.
So, my explanation is that predominantly, the overwhelming population, the people who do turn out to vote, are either left or right in the swing states.
The argument.
Can I finish? I give you like good 25
Alright, I'm going to give you 20 more seconds and I'm cutting you off. Go.
Okay. 1, 2. Alright, predominantly for these states, because people are either left and right, candidates do go to their states. That's why Rosenberg tells you is that the way campaign strategy work there is that candidates only try to turn out their base.
Yeah.
Instead of...
Okay. I get that. Like, it's been 20 seconds, I watched the timer. Now I get to say something because we only have a 3-minute crosstalk.
Okay.
See, that is true, generally. The argument we're making, right, is that the reason swing states, like when you have like a 0.1% or a 0.5% margin in Florida, the voters who are going to make that difference, the ones who actually matter for the outcome of the election, are called swing voters. Swing states,
No.
demographically have more swing voters.
You're just lying to everyone.
That's not, dude, that's literally why it's called a swing state.
No,
like,
you
swing.
still don't understand the definition of a swing state, right? States swing left and right in election cycles.
Yeah.
But the way that it works, or how campaign strategy works there, is that because people are either 50% on the left or 50% on the right, and moderates are not part of the population there that actually matter,
then let me ask you
candidates
this.
focus on their base.
Let's exclude the Trump-Hillary election because I think that's like a bad example.
I didn't even mention
So I'm about to ask. I know. I was about to ask you a question about that, right? All the elections
You're
before.
mention it now?
Yes. Okay.
You're giving me your
All the elections before that, have we seen these crazy extremists winning, or have we generally seen presidents who have like a strong national message winning?
Okay.
Yes or no?
It's your
Which one?
first. Okay, let me give you an answer.
Well, we're already over time, so just make it quick.
Make it quick?
Yeah.
Alright. Quick answer. Your first choice, the one where historically it's been that way. For all the years that have been true, swing states are either 50% left
Okay,
or 50%.
that's not an answer to my question, but thank you anyways. That's tough.
That were the two choices you gave me. You can walk me out of the microphone while the cracks on the top.
Alright, so we're going to do exactly what we did after the first crossfire. So first of all, how many people have changed their minds by now? Okay, that's good to see. Okay, you're showing to that. So how many people thought that Devesh won that crossfire?